How do you choose the best or the right platform for a new ad campaign? That's what we're going to talk about. Should you go on Facebook? Should you go on YouTube? Should you go on Instagram? How do you know the best platform to launch a new ad campaign for one of your funnels? Of course, we're back with none other than John Mulry. What's up, John?
What's happening, Todd? You must be sick of me at this stage.
Not at all, man. I love spending time with you at Top One and having these calls and picking your brain, man. Always great stuff, dude. And so, but let's dive in and get to it. So let's say somebody came to you and said, "Look, I've got a funnel. Maybe they've tested it a little bit with some house traffic with their email database. Maybe they haven't, but they're confident in the funnel, and now they're trying to decide, I want to do some paid media. I want to do some online advertising. How do I decide where to start? Should I start on Facebook? Should I start on YouTube? Is there another platform? Walk us through the process of how you decide what platform to begin with and why."
Yeah, so some of the things that we consider, there's some of the main things that we consider in terms of choosing what platform is. So there's two things. First of all, there's choosing what platform to start with, and then there's like choosing the ecosystem that you want to build out long term. So long term, I believe, like if you're scaling your campaigns, you should be on as many platforms as possible. So say, for example, we generally focus on um, branded search and seed keyword campaigns on Google search, Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, and then YouTube ads. That's kind of where we like, or where we build our ecosystem around. So longer term, what I'd like people to move towards is getting into at least those three areas, maybe looking at others after that. But like everything stems from my long term is to get there if we can and if we need to. But to start off, then before we before we can get going on all those platforms, we have to start with one, obviously. And then in terms of starting with one, we generally take a step back and look at two areas of the business. First and foremost is the actual market for the offer, the actual market for the product that we're going to be promoting, the service we're promoting, the offer we're promoting. So where are those people currently hanging out? And is to kind of dive a little bit deeper into that is when we're analyzing our market and doing our market research and doing all of our competitor research and all the stuff that we do when we're helping people, like that people should be doing anyways, or we would help them do, is we start to find out, okay, the types of places people are hanging out, the type of things people are searching for, the types of things people are interested in, and then we can get a feel for where the market is. Because obviously some products and some offers and some services are more in line with community-driven marketplaces like Facebook, like Instagram, and places like that, where others are more highly intent-based, where that's going to be like things like Google search and everything else, and maybe some YouTube search and things like that. So we have to first analyze our market. And then let's say we've analyzed our market and we have a fair idea where we want to go with. The second side of that is in terms of the skill set of the person who's going to be running the traffic or actually going to be creating the creatives. Because obviously there's no point me saying you need to be doing YouTube when you're absolutely despise going in front of the camera and you're not good on camera, you're not comfortable on camera. Me telling you to go on YouTube is just going to you're going to come up with 15 reasons why you don't want to do video, and then you're just not going to do it. So first and foremost, it's starting where the market is and meeting them where they're at. And then secondly, like at least when someone's going to be, say, running their own media, it's like starting with platforms where the skill level isn't as high as, say, you don't need high production quality video and things like that. So typically, and this is typically when we're testing new campaigns and new offers, typically like we would start as something like Meta on Facebook, but that's not to say that we wouldn't capitalize on something like Google search and some branded search as well, because the intent can be there. But like first and foremost for us, like generally speaking, for the lion's share of clients we work with that are in the, say, the coaching space or the consulting space, or they have an info product or whatever the case is, or a course or whatever the case may be, typically from a testing point of view, we like to test on platforms like Meta. But that's not just because Meta is like easier than another platform. It's because in those spaces, we know that the markets are on Meta. We know that they're interacting in Facebook groups. We know that they're hanging out in groups and they're posting in communities and all these different things. So we start with Meta. So it always starts with where the audience are at. And like I said, if it's a high intent audience that they're searching on Google for, let's say, for example, you're selling a trading software And like, are people searching for similar softwares to yours? If they are, and if it lends itself to intent-based marketing, well, then yeah, maybe we wouldn't test on Meta straight away. We'd go straight to Google. So it really depends on the audience first, and then the skill level then after that.
Yeah, awesome, man. So I just want to touch on this in intent based because I think that what you really touched on is an interesting point that I want to make sure folks get. So, look, different platforms attract people with different levels of intent. Obviously, when somebody goes to Google and searches for, what's the best trading software or, trading software app or something like that, the intent is significantly greater, obviously, than that same trader who's going on Facebook to keep up with their friends and to interact with different groups and pages and whatnot. And that's also different from, let's say, the person who is going on YouTube and merely searching for a video on trading. And so there are different levels of intent for different platforms. And that different level of intent is ultimately going to impact the type of creative that you use to get their attention and create engagement. Now, is it fair to say, John, that, that some products, I don't even want to say markets, but some products lend themselves significantly more to intent-based advertising than others? Like for example, let's take, there are probably, I've never done research on this, but I have to imagine there are probably very few people that are waking up in the morning and actively thinking about they want to get a newsletter subscription to, some financial or trading publication. But yet when it comes to, let's say, purchasing a particular camera or a particular supplement, there are a lot more intent-based people. Therefore, there are a lot more intent-based searches, and therefore there's a different opportunity in terms of online ads, media buying, to really leverage Google and maybe, like you said, to start with Google rather than starting on Facebook. And so is that fair to say what it is that I just shared?
Yeah, I mean that's bang on. Like there are certain markets, certain products, and again, like probably more products than markets that lend themselves to things like if someone was in the way we look at it is put yourself in your prospect shoes and like where are they like in terms of their level of awareness, and if they're a little bit higher up on the level of awareness, does your product fall into a category where they will go to Google to search for it? Now obviously there's like if we take the agency for example, obviously in terms of levels of awareness, there's people that are like completely unaware at the bottom. They don't even know that the reason why they're not able to scale their business is because they don't know how to run effective paid media. They're not even aware of that at all the way up to the top. There's someone that I've had a consultation with that is aware of the agency, aware of our agency, or offer, or pricing and structuring and everything else. So they're in between those two brackets. There's a long string of people, but in to like throughout that, there's going to be phases that people go through where there is higher intent. So they might search for it. There may be people out there searching for, advertising agency near me and things like that. They're obviously high intent around hiring an agency. So we can capitalize on those folks potentially. But one thing to mention with intent is that with intent and with high intent comes high costs and high
Yeah.
competition. And
Yeah.
then that makes it the what we go back to so often is in terms of economics is that when there's high intent and high competition, there's going to be high costs. So then economics become even more important again when there's high intent. And I know we come back to economics a lot, but there's a reason why we come back to economics a lot, because when there is high intent, there, like I said, there's high competition. Perfect example is, let's say take in the local marketing space where you have like a local chiropractor or a local dentist and everything else. They like I would be telling them to be on Google search as a priority and as their primary tool, but knowing that they will be paying a premium for those clicks as well because everybody else is probably going to be there as well.
Yeah. Well said, man. I think that it is valuable for folks to really understand. Look, high intent is super valuable because these are people that are interested in buying and they're expressing their desire to buy through their intention through the keyword search, let's say, that they're doing on Google. And so you are going to pay a premium for that kind of targeted ready to buy prospect compared to, let's say, lower on the awareness pyramid, obviously unaware or a much broader market, right? You're going to pay less for that because it's up to us to sift and sort and qualify and extract out of those people the people that ultimately are going to buy. And so I also love what you said earlier when you talked a little bit about the idea of playing to your strengths. Obviously it's important to recognize that there's different types of creative that's used on different platforms. Obviously on something like Facebook, we can get away with static image based ads. On YouTube, we need, video. On TikTok, it's much shorter, kind of more, hook based content, if you will. And so there's not only different creative, but there's obviously different skill sets required to create those different types of creatives. And as I've said before, even as it relates to the type of marketing campaigns and marketing models that you use, you want to play a game that you can win. You want to play a game to leverage your strengths. And so for some people, if they're not, like you said, John, comfortable on camera, if they're just not good on camera, if they don't enjoy being on camera, you need to be aware of what the different platforms require in terms of creative and therefore in terms of skill sets. And you really want to play to your advantage. And so with that, let me ask you this. Would you say that there are certain platforms that are easier than others? And, easier can mean a number of different things. Easier in terms of creative, easier in terms of testing, easier maybe in terms of getting data back, or maybe easier in terms of making work in some. And I know that this varies market to market, product to product, but are there any platforms that you would say are easier if you had to rate them on a scale of difficulty?
Yeah, I mean, there is, and there's one small caveat to this that I will add to it before I expand on the answer, and it's the first protocol in terms of making a platform easier is in terms of what assets have you got already. So in terms of, like, let's say, for example, that someone has a YouTube channel with a substantial amount of subscribers, and so they have a YouTube channel and they're comfortable doing video. Let's just assume that for a second. So then in terms of making YouTube work initially is going to be easier because you have an asset that you can work with. You can obviously run ads to your YouTube subscribers. You can run ads to people who are watching your videos, and that's a little bit of a warmer audience than, say, just going completely cold. Likewise, if you have a Facebook community, whether that's a page or a group or whatever the case is, you have some assets there that you can leverage as well. So that's like assets, current assets are definitely a factor in terms of what platform you could start with. But then let's assuming someone doesn't have any of that. They don't have a YouTube channel. They don't have a Facebook page or a group with a significant audience and everything else. In terms of ease of getting a campaign going, probably the easiest one is running static image ads on Facebook. And typically that's where we start in terms of testing. So to map out like let's say kind of a game plan for people in terms of they want to set up a new campaign. They don't have much assets and they want to get going. They haven't really tested platforms before. I would be getting started with meta ads and testing on meta, testing messaging, testing static images on meta. So that's basically Facebook and Instagram. My phase two, let's say we're getting that going and we're starting to scale that as much as we can, and everything else we can get into that and maybe in another video. But basically, let's say they've got meta going and everything else. Phase two of that then will be some branded search around what I'm promoting, because as you're showing people ads on Facebook, there's going to be a certain percentage of people that will see the name of the thing that you're promoting. They'll see your name. They'll see things related to you. And a certain percentage of those folks are going to start Googling. They're going to start going into search mode. They're going to start going into research or intent mode. So the second phase will be to have some branded searches around what it is you're promoting. The third phase then after that will be, and I can get into what branded search is if you want some clarification on it. But then the third step after that will be some seed keyword campaigns around the thing that it is you're promoting to build upon your meta ads, to build upon your branded search ads. And then so we have a second layer of Google search, which is a seed keyword campaign. So basically what a seed keyword campaign is, let's say perfect example for the Offernomics book, and this is something that we're currently building out right now, so it's very topical. So perfect example is seed keywords for the Offernomics book will be, well, first branded search will be the name of the book, my name, the E5 agency. That's all branded searches around the thing that we're promoting. Seed keywords for the book then will be new advertising books released this year. That's a seed keyword around our offer. Another one might be, books on paid advertising. So that's another different seed keyword, but it's related to our offer and there's high intent around it. If someone searches books on paid advertising and we show them an ad for Offernomics and they're brought to the book sales page, there's a good match there in terms of message to market match. So that's why we build in that. And then once we have those three pillars in place, then we would look at a second kind of like stronger pillar in terms of something like a YouTube ads or maybe even TikTok or something like that if your market or your product was a fit for that. Does that make
So is
sense?
it, yeah, totally, absolutely does. Appreciate the explanation. So is it fair or accurate to say that branded search is kind of much higher on awareness? It's, it's the brand, it's the name of the book, it's you, it's people that are actively searching for the product or the company. And then the seed keyword is more kind of that expanded. It's people that through their search are indicating an interest related to the product, brand, offer, etc. Is that fair to say? So it's a little bit lower
That's
on the
fair to say,
awareness. Okay.
but like highly related. It wouldn't be like a broad term around the offer. Like the seed
Right.
that what makes seed keyword campaigns work really well is when they're highly related, but they haven't yet got to like the branded search level.
Got it. So it's still specific enough to indicate that these people are interested in the product without necessarily naming the product. So it's like,
Exactly,
I
yeah.
think that what you said was perfect, right? The Offernomics book is more branded, whereas, new marketing books or new advertising books, right? That is related and, directly linked to the offer. Got it. Totally makes sense. Let me ask you this as it relates to that. So you said to start, you would ultimately in many cases, maybe in the majority of cases, you would start on Meta. Of course, there are no hard and fast rules because some products naturally have a tremendous high intent based audience. And so therefore they may be better off leveraging Google out of the gate. But you said in this instance that you would start on Facebook or Meta. And then you'd ultimately go over to branded and seed keyword. How important, how important do you think in an overall media buying ecosystem, to use your phrase, your expression, how important and critical today, as we're recording this, do you think it is to have branded search and seed keyword campaigns as part of that overall ecosystem? Like I'm asking you because for many people, it may feel, very, 2000-ish for those of us that have been around a long time, right? It may feel like old school, like, right? Like most people are kind of thinking, Facebook, YouTube, and they're not really thinking about Google. And so how important do you think today it is in the overall media buying ecosystem to have those elements on Google?
I think it's really important because like there will be a certain percentage of people that go into research mode that don't make a decision immediately. There's a reason why conversion rates are sub 10% and not like 90 plus percent because the line share of people don't make that buying decision straight away. The line share of people either like don't resonate with your stuff and they'll leave or they go into research mode. They start like thinking about the process of buying a product or service or engaging with someone else. And part of that thinking process and part of that research is Googling, is using search engine, is finding like listen, for one of our clients, one of our best performing branded keywords is the name of the product reviews. And like that like
Right.
the results that we get from that is huge. And what it does overall, when we look at say like a blended CPA, is like we can economically make campaigns extremely viable because someone might not buy straight away, but then 2 weeks later they're searching and we get them with a search keyword that brings them back into the funnel and they purchase then. So I
Yeah.
think like it's for some people it's like yeah like branded search is not new. It's like it's not something that's new. It's been around for a long time, but the lion's share of people understand it yet they don't actually implement it. And I think they're losing out on sales and conversions. And when it like business is about generating sales and generating getting customers and getting clients. And when you have a vehicle to help you do that and you don't use it, you're losing out on potential sales and potential customers you might not ordinarily get otherwise.
Yeah, well said. I think that, the to really look at the Google elements and recognize that yes, they have benefit in standing on their own as their own acquisition channel, right? For people that maybe don't see an ad and then go over to Google, but just go right to Google and start doing, some searches. But they also have a supportive role in supporting the other ads. And so in supporting the meta ads, and there are a number of people that will actively research afterwards. They're not going to merely buy from, right, an ad to a landing page and buy. There are a percentage that will do that, but there are also a whole host of other people that are going to then do a little bit of research and see if they can get more information, especially the higher price the offer is. And so I think that that's really, really interesting. At some point, maybe on our maybe next week, we can talk a little bit about the tracking that is used to do things like get the blended CPA and really explain what blended CPA is, because I know that one of the big things that people struggle with is kind of making heads or tails of the data when you have these multiple touch points in a campaign potentially before somebody buys. How do you know whether, it's this together? And how does the CPA and AOV look with these things blended together? And so I think that it's worth us having a discussion about that. Is there anything that I didn't ask you related to how to choose a platform when starting with an ad campaign that you think is worthy of talking about?
Um, I don't think so, but I think I'd bring it back to like the meeting the audience where they're at, but then also like in terms of when it's a new campaign and you have no data, like the goal isn't to scale the campaign, the goal is to get data. So how can you get that data as quickly as possible? So you can start to make better decisions so you can start to scale that campaign. And generally speaking, Meta is a great platform for getting data extremely quickly because you can have static image ads that can be created relatively easy on things like Photoshop or Canva or Keynote or whatever the case is. You can have them created pretty quickly, and then you can have data that within a couple of days of your campaign going live. Things with like
Yeah.
YouTube, you start to delay things where there's video production, there's the fact that YouTube is a beast in itself to get going, and it takes a long time to start to get the results because of how the algorithm on YouTube works versus say on Meta. So in terms of like new campaign, getting data quickly, like defaulting to something like Meta is really good because you can get the data quick and you can make better decisions. And then once you find what's working, like the type of the messaging that's working on Meta, the type of hooks that is working on Meta, the type of messages that people are responding to, then you can take that over time. And then when you do start on YouTube, you're not starting from ground zero. You have an idea of the messages that have worked because you test quickly on Meta. So like I think that like getting the data and getting to the results, like I'm a big proponent of like what can we do to get the data as quickly as possible. And generally speaking, that's like let's test on Meta and then let's use what we've learned on Meta to use on other platforms at a later stage.
I love it. I think that's a great place for us to wrap, and I just want to echo what it is that you said. I mean, the foundation of direct response. And one of the beautiful aspects of direct response compared to brand institutional advertising is the ability to make decisions objectively, to make decisions based on numbers and data and not mere opinion, assumptions, feelings, or guesswork. And so we want to make the least number of decisions possible subjectively, and we want to make the most number of decisions or the greatest amount of decisions possible objectively with data. And so what that means is that we want to go from a state of having no data and making decisions to a point where we have data, and then we can let the data drive our decision making. And so a big part of any new campaign is getting data as quickly as we can. This doesn't mean that we're shortcutting the creation or engineering process of the campaign. It doesn't mean that we're leaving elements out just so that we can get data quickly, right? We're building out our full, the core offer, if you will, of the campaign. We're building it out the right way, and then we're launching it, and we're getting data, and then we're going to use the data to iterate right? This is a game, like we've talked about this many times before. I've been talking about this for years. Direct response is a game of iteration. It's not a game of engineering. And what I mean by that is that engineering a campaign and then iterating or enhancing the campaign, optimizing the campaign, as some folks may say, are two different activities done at two different stages. We engineer, right? And then we get data, and then we use the data to enhance and iterate. And the overwhelming majority of your success will come from that enhancing stage, that iterative stage, right? Using the data. So we engineer, we launch, we get data, we use the data to make objective decisions. And then based on what that data tells us is maybe the constraint or the issue in the campaign, whether it's on the media side, whether it's on the marketing side, or whether it's on the economic side, we then make adjustments accordingly, get more data, and continue to allow the data to drive our decisions. And so I love it. Great, video today, man. I think that this is really important for people to understand kind of the nuances of different platforms have different levels of intent-based audiences, some significantly more than others, like Google compared to Facebook. There are different skill sets required to create the creative needed for the different platforms. I think that that is critical to understand. It's critical to understand the need for data and, rapid, accurate data as quick as we can. You talked about the value and the necessity of Google, not only as its own standing platform, but in over the long haul to support your other advertising for people that go and do research. And we'll end with the kind of the most important point that you shared twice, which is really looking at these platforms not as merely what are the most popular platforms out there in the wild, or what are the coolest platforms out there, but where is my audience? Where do I have the best opportunity to target that audience, to get out in front of my target audience, and then ultimately give them the type of creative and messaging that they need to be interested, engaged, and respond. And so very cool. So John, how do people get in touch with you, man, if they want to learn more about the E5 agency and working with you? I know it's somewhere on the video, but where do they go?
So they can simply go to e5agency.com. So that's the letter E, the number 5, agency.com. And there they'll be able to find out exactly how we'll be able to help them. And then they'll be able to book a call directly with me if they see so fit. So, yeah, so e5agency.com.
Love it, man. Awesome call as usual, brother. I will see you next week.